small sample size would be what's happened this year so far. This year, Seiya Suzuki is slashing, and if you're just joining us for a baseball season, when I say slash line, it is batting average on base percentage, slugging percentage. The slash line, 333, 379, 593. That's big time. Woo! And then you say, what's the WRC plus? Woo! And again, if you're just joining us, WRC plus, it's similar to OPS plus. It is a number that where the league average at any time in any run environment in that season, so it's relative to that season of that run environment, average is 100. Any point over that is a percentage better than average. Any point under is a percent below average. He's a 157 OPS plus this year. And say, okay, great. He's had a nice start to the year. Well, it's oddly reminiscent of his second half numbers last year.
Mm-hmm.
Seiya Suzuki in the second half of 2023, 313, 372, 566, a WRC plus of 149. What he has been since then, make no mistake, Seiya Suzuki, since the middle of last year, is one of the best hitters in baseball.
That is right. And if you remember, we used to have David Ross on, and we would talk Rossi, and there was a moment where Seiya got sat down. He got benched kind of before he went on this run. So we talked with Rossi about why he was doing what he was doing and how it could help Seiya.
He's just a little in between right now, trying to get him a plan in the box, thinking the right thoughts, give him a minute to work on some things. We can see how off he is and just not in rhythm. And, I think he's beating himself up a little bit, wanting to produce for the guys. And his heart is in the right place. We got to get his head in the right place. We got to get his mechanics in the right place and just give him some things just to get him back going. And so he knows that. He knows he needs to work on some things. So just it's hard to do that in game, and we'll give him some time, and he'll be back in there when we feel like he can help us win games.
Development isn't linear. And this seemed to be a flashpoint for Seiya Suzuki last year. And it's interesting that in there, Ross is saying the mechanics aren't in the right place right now, which leads us to...
What is the adjustment?
Ron Coomer was on with Haugh and Marshall today, and he talked about the mechanic adjustment that Seiya Suzuki has made.
Well, he's doing a few things. There's one mechanical thing that I see with Seiya that, to me, it happens with a lot of hitters, David. The one thing you can't be is late. And what I mean by late in your setup as you're getting ready to approach the baseball. So for guys with a leg kick, if that front foot comes down late and touches the ground late, you're always catching up. And now you end up trying to create bat speed, and you're just not on time. And what that does is that you end up flipping around the ball ever so slightly. But that's where those hooking ground balls come from, is being late, in your timing. And I saw that a lot with Seiya through the last year or so. This year, his front foot gets down early, and now all of a sudden, the recognition of the pitch, now you decide where you want to hit the ball because you're on time, and now the swing just takes over, and you catch the ball a little bit out in front of home plate, and now you can elevate the ball to the left instead of roll over the top of it. You can drive the ball to the middle of the field like he did in the first game of the last series and hit that home run to straightaway center, which was a rocket. So the little bit of mechanical things. The other thing, too, in talking with counsel, Craig told me that there's a factor that I didn't know about that plays in, is his understanding of the league and the pitchers and what they've got and who they are. And I didn't take that into account because we've played here and we've been here for so long. But guys that are coming in, he just didn't know the league as well, and I think he's starting to figure out who's got what, and he's figuring out the league a little better too.
Get that foot down. And I noticed it when Boog and JD have been looking at some replays that JD must have known something too, because JD said something like, look at this swing by Seiya. The foot is down. Like, we can talk all we want about load position or the Ripken school of go back to go forward, but unless you are ready to rock and roll, unless that reverse pulley action, and if you don't have the firm front side, none of the stuff back here matters.
You'll be late on everything,
Yep.
and you'll be off balance. And
you allow the hands to come down. That's how you develop a loop rather than a clean path to the ball.
It can be embarrassing.
That's like, do you remember when Kosuke Fukudome would get, what did Pinella call it? He said he'd start spinning.
Yes.
The difference between on time and then being sort of just twirling around, it all had to do with that fulcrum and that the balancing and the moment that front foot is down and ready to go.
I like that Coombe put in there the idea of you have to get your own book. That as a player, like you are coming from another league, and no matter how much tape you may have or have access to, it doesn't beat the experience of I've faced this pitcher. And now that I've faced this pitcher or faced this pitcher multiple times, I have a better idea of what my strengths are against this particular pitcher. And it seems like Seiya is doing that as well, which is super cool. It's fun to see. And you're right. Like if you put together the last half of this season and the start to this one, it's a pretty good run that he's on. And it's cool that Council seems to be able to get through to people. Not that Ross didn't. Like that was clearly a pivotal moment in Seiya Suzuki's career. And I think a lot of credit should be given to Rossi for that. Because it was one of those questions of, well, wait, this guy is supposed to be a big deal. Why are you sitting him down in the middle of a season when you're in a push to try to make a playoff team? It ends up being, from the hitting standpoint, the right thing. Seiya had a little bit of trouble fielding some balls late in the season, and that was costly to the Cubs. But I love seeing stuff like this. I love like the back and forth, like the idea of adjustment. Why don't we stick on the concept of getting on base? Because OBP is life, right? More Coombe here, and this is from this morning with David and Marshall. Mully had the day off. This was him talking about on base percentage of the Cubs, them not striking out, them taking a lot of walks, and what he thinks that means.
Yeah, it does. I think Tachman has had a lot to do with that. He's had some really good at-bats in the last two ball games where Craig's got him in the lineup. And I think he had 3 walks in one game and maybe 2 in the other. If I think back to a couple games ago, it also has to do with the Rockies pitching staff. Their pitching staff, we know, is really struggling. So that plays into the factors of what these numbers are in the early going. But this is a good team, and the Cubs are a good team. They're a good offensive team. They do a good job. They've got a good mix. Marshall is probably the best way to describe it. You got some guys that go up there looking to hit from pitch number 1, and they're swinging coming out of the on-deck circle. And you got some guys that are very patient and will take walks and will look to work the count against an opposing pitcher. So the thing that stands out to me the most is they just have a good mix of guys that make it difficult on the pitchers. And to me, that is the thing that I'm excited about, is you've got that situation where every other hitter almost is a little different look for the opposing pitcher. And it's not left-right. It's just in approaches and how they go about the game.
Let me marry the 2 points here that you just presented. This idea of an individual hitter getting a book on a pitcher. It's a team game. And when it comes to the more you see, the more you know. The more you see about approach, the more that can be discussed about movement, the more data can be shared, the more video you have to go back and watch. And when you are taking pitches, when there are long at bats, when you're fouling off pitchers' pitches, that sometimes in the moment, as a viewer, it can become tedious. But that is where you can vivisect an opponent. You can slowly peel away the opponent's defenses. You can learn. You can get free information about everything that's going on. When you start to see, you know what shot I love? I love when the home broadcast shows action in the opposing bullpen. especially when it's early, when you see stirrings down there, when you see the guy doing the windmill action, or he's got the bands out and he's doing this with both hands.
He's getting up there.
You're winning. You're winning, especially if it's the first game of the series. And sometimes I know all you care about is the scoreboard and you're busy, but when you watch the way the really good teams make an opponent's life difficult, they're not only stressing you out, they're learning. Everything matters. What did this guy do last time? Oh, in game one, you might go to your lower leverage guys now. You might be saving guys for a game at the end of this series. And then if you meet him in the playoffs, you know a whole lot more. Baseball is a long game of success, not just because of the 6 months, not because of the grind, but because of how every single outcome provides smart teams data and opportunity.